Boo. Here we are, peeps. Here we are. Super Bowl Sunday. A good time to reflect on different interpretations of the world. But I know I talk a lot about perceptions and the way people see things, but in particular, this particular lecture I listened to earlier, it just started. It's like a 30-part series, but it was about perceptions, and they're breaking it down into the way we perceive things through our different senses and how it affects our perceptions of the world. So I'll try to kind of sum this up. They did many experiments in the past, which today would be getting people thrown in jail for the things they did with the kids and people. But a good example is one where they took a kid and they put him in a room with rabbits, a 5-6-year-old kid. And every time he got near the rabbits, they would play either some scary sound or something would happen. Oh, they would make a loud, like, loud bang or something, and the kid would get scared. So they repeated this over and over, and eventually the kid associated rabbits with fear. Of course. We've seen this repeated over and over, but people don't seem to understand the implications of it, what it really means. That when I hear, let's say the loud bang might be a word like chemtrails, and I hear it differently than another person hears it. Another person's instantly defensive and thinks that it's something that instills fear, and another person it may instill laughter. And I remember that each one of us really sees these things in our own way. The kid, 10 years later, when they brought him back, he was still afraid of rabbits. And this should say a lot to people, these ideas that when a child is presented with a fear. So this is you could compare this to a religion, a fear of the devil, or a fear of hell. If a kid's brought up to fear hell and constantly told to fear hell, then of course he's going to fear hell and assume that that's just the natural way to be. Is there any legitimate reason to fear rabbits? No, of course not. And all he had to do is a few experiments with a few loud sounds, not even every day, like some people are told things every day, and that really sticks with you. So it makes me really question my own reality. It makes me question why I get this certain fear. I don't generally get a fear pang or that feeling in my stomach, that butterflies in your stomach feeling you get when something's really scary or something's coming that is going to, perhaps tax your body or your conscience. But eliminating that fear is nearly impossible. Because if you don't have some sort of a fear, then, a fear of death is what keeps us from walking off a cliff. It's a common fear, but it's one that we need to keep us from doing stupid things. So, the experiments that they've done with psychology, which psychology actually wasn't even it didn't exist until 1871, when the first psychologist coined the word psychology. I can't remember his name, but they based it on the idea that psychology was supposed to be a way to scientifically explain how the brain works, and that was a failure from the beginning, because it's subjective experience that determines who we are and many of the things that we perceive. So when you're online and say a YouTube video and you're commenting back and forth with people, it's easy to just call a person stupid or say a person's just an idiot because they believe a particular thing because of the associations that have been made with that word. A good example would be a Christian. If a person says, I'm a Christian, a person who's a Christian may perceive that as good, a safe zone. This person's a safe person to be around. Another Christian might say, what kind of Christian? Because their perception of Christianity is individual. And another person yet might say, what an idiot. If he believes in Christ, then he's instantly a fool in my book. And I don't think any of these are right. I don't think that any person can determine a person's worth on having similar viewpoints. But we do. We do. And this is how groups get formed. This is how people become holier than thou. And one of the hardest things for me is people who have careers that are based in what we would call a prestigious career. They may view the rest of the world as a bunch of worker bee fools, or, you know, people who couldn't make it to the top. Here, let me give you this example. Some people who have really high-paying, prestigious jobs assume that people who don't have those jobs just didn't have what it took or didn't have the motivation to get themselves there. When the reality is, a lot of the times, people are very content with who they are and what they do. An example, I could be a CEO. I know that if I'd wanted to if I wanted to make a couple $100,000 a year, I could do it. I wouldn't be working a job I enjoyed, but I could do it. But what's more important to me is my state of mind and my, my conscious life, my family. And others may perceive that as laziness or ignorance or any number of things. A person may have suffered for a long time and then be offered something and they take it, and another person may say, well, that was out of greed, when maybe it was really out of hunger. All of these are just, cut and dry examples of just basic perceptions. But the cat is a good example. A cat will get up and run outside for no reason. But he has a reason. Cats can hear in ultrasonic. They hear the mice conversing. We don't understand why they do what they do. One of the examples a guy used in this lecture I listened to was he had a cat when he was young, and then every time he heard the can opener in the kitchen, electric can opener, he'd come running because he'd think he was going to be fed. They got a new cat, a younger cat. The first time the can opener went off, the older cat ran into the kitchen. The other cat ran upstairs, freaked out, and hid under the bed. The end result was going to be the same for both cats. They'd be fed. But one had a different perception of what that sound meant. Now, another example they used was a guy came home to, fool his family in a Halloween costume, and nobody knew who he was in the family when he knocked on the door, but the dog instantly smelled him, wagged his tail, and walked off because he knew. That dog has a different perception. He sees things differently than we do. And even among animal species that see things differently, some see in ultraviolet, snakes see in infrared, they'll see you in pitch black. Bees can see magnetic fields, to what we know, and there's a lot. Bees can see in ultraviolet as well. They believe some birds can see magnetic fields. The point being that the perceptions are so different between species, and we forget that the perceptions are so different between individuals too. We assume that since we're all in the same world, that we all should perceive it the same way. And unfortunately, most of our perceptions are based on how we were raised. And it's hard for people to break away from that what they've been taught, I've been taught good morals, good work ethics. It would be very hard for me to go learn bad work ethics because it's who I am. I can't do bad work. I can't lie and cheat and steal. But a person who had been raised with bad work ethic may have a hard time getting to good work ethics because that's part of their value system. They believe in getting what you can and cheating and hiding and slacking when the boss isn't around, that kind of stuff. I'm an independent person. I keep working when the boss leaves, but not everybody's like that. Does it make me better or worse? No, it's just different. I'm just a different person with different values. And so for those of us out there who know this already, it's just a matter of catering to the needs of those around you, the loved ones, and remembering that their viewpoints are going to be different and they're going to stand up for what they believe. And it's really easy to cast a person's opinion into the gutter, but I think we owe it to ourselves to remember that we can't even agree on what the color blue is. Can you prove blue? So, we see what we see. Namaste. Have a great Sunday.